Alrighty guys, we might get started now just because we are on a bit of a tight schedule, but thank you so much for coming and thank you as well for that amazing welcome to country ceremony. It's nice to feel welcomed in the space that we're on, which is Dja Dja Wurrung land. I'd like to introduce myself and Finn as well. So my name is Kurun, I use he him pronouns, and I'm a young peer facilitator with YACVic, but I'm also in a few different spaces around youth health, particularly sexual health and disability in Victoria.
Thanks, Corinne. I'm Finn. I use they, them pronouns. I'm also a young peer facilitator at YACVic. I also wear many other hats at YACVic, so you'll see me around the conference in a few other different roles.
And now we'd like to introduce a special guest. So coming onto the stage, we have the Minister for Youth, Veterans and Small Businesses, also the State Member for St Albans. It is the Honourable Natalie Suleyman. Here we go.
Thank you very much and good afternoon to you all. It's an absolute pleasure to be here and join you at YACVic Rural Youth Sector Conference today. To begin with, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to their elders, both past and present. And in particular, thank you to Jacobsen for your beautiful welcome this afternoon. Thank you to Christy and Derm from YACVic for not only inviting me here today, but also keeping me afloat with all the great work that you do during the year. As many of you would know, I'm the Minister for Youth, but also a proud State Member for St Albans, a seat out in the West. I was born and raised in St Albans in the West, and I too understand the importance of having a voice and really supporting young people so that they can shine and really fulfil those opportunities that we all have. So nearly 1 year ago to just about this day, my first event as the Minister was attending YACVic Rural Youth Awards here in Bendigo, and I was sort of 24 hours into the job. My first task was Bendigo, and to join YACVic and all the young people that night. It was such a beautiful evening, sharing the joy not only of young people but their families, their supporters in the room was amazing, and that really stuck with me because let me tell you, the following week a question time, my very first question was about young people and my youth portfolio. So I was able to share my experience at YACVic and talk about the Youth Awards evening. So that moment I think is going to be with me forever. So you're lucky. That will be my absolute joy of my parliamentary and ministerial career. The first event, the first question, all related to YACVic. So that's fantastic. Yeah. Let me tell you what, the day that I got that question, I was absolutely a nervous wreck because everybody in Parliament said to me, my colleagues of course, don't worry, it's first question time, you won't get a question. And the first question was to me. There you go. So look, we're here today, you know, to celebrate, but also, you know, we acknowledge that there's been challenges, and there's always challenges for young people, and in particular over the last year. And it's very positive to see so many people committed to supporting young people, achieving their best and shining. And just yesterday I was with the team at Sin Media, the radio, I'm sure you all know, with the team there announcing $100,000 so that they can continue to be your voice, to be live and share your stories. And they do such a great work. And I was advised 70,000 listeners per week. Isn't that amazing? Young people. And anyway, you know, we know how important it is to support young people and the great work that YACVic does from the grassroots organisations to deliver essential activities, services supporting mental health and social connection. Not just YACVic, I know that there is a number of providers here today doing great work in the space that they do. I know firsthand that the positive impact of this project has had on our recent visit also to Seymour, and hearing firsthand from young people at Seymour and the important work that they have been doing, in particular some of the projects and the partnerships that they've been working with YACVic and Victoria University. It's so important to empower young people to take an active role in their communities, and sometimes, in particular in Seymour, where it was the disaster recovery area, that young people were pretty integral in bringing the community together, because it was very challenging. There was a lot of, extremely heartbreaking stories, but young people were able to unite and at least be able to share and cheer up that local community through their partnerships with Victoria University. And I know just recently, YACVic's absolute passion and tireless advocacy when it comes to TAFE, and I know last week my colleague, the Minister Teeny, was pleased to announce that the Diploma of Youth Work has been added to our 2024 free TAFE list, and I know YACVic has done a lot of advocacy. Thank you. Because we know that investing to create a pipeline of qualified, skilled youth workers is absolutely essential for our community, whether it's regional, rural or Melbourne. We know that building a good record, and most importantly, a record investment, I should say, to rebuild the TAFE system is critical to young people. And highlights the Alannah Labor government's continued commitment to supporting young people in various ways. Not everybody has the chance along their journey to move on to university, and it's always great to be able to provide those flexible opportunities to learn, whether it's young people or older people that want to re-enter the workforce. Again, I know the opening, we will have an exciting 3 days. I hope the weather continues to be as shiny and sunny here, but I also want you to turn your minds in particular to continuing to support our young people to achieve good mental health and wellbeing. That is so critical. Also engage with education and employment, to be connected with your friends and with your local community, and really understanding the power of voices. I hope, as I said, you enjoy the opportunity to connect, to network, and even just to share stories and experiences. It's always great opportunity to do so, and take part of the challenges, and most importantly, have really inspiring conversations about the future. As Victorians, we should be incredibly proud of the work being led by young people, especially the young people here with us today. I know each and every one of you contribute in some way towards young people. I want to thank you on behalf of the Alannah Labor government, and enjoy your next 3 days. I can't wait to hear what next year will follow, the next 12 months, and hopefully I could join you again this time. Take care and all the very best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Minister, for your beautiful words, and how special that your first memories on the job are about YACVic. I really loved that. All right, so we might do a bit of housekeeping before we introduce the panel, if that's all right.
Yeah. Alrighty, so as you may have noticed, we're in quite a large room, or may not have noticed. We have emergency exits over there, that's not really descriptive, over there as well. So in each corner of the room, basically. As for bathrooms, we have all gender toilets just behind that black block of wall there. And we do have another toilet in the quiet room at the very back. I do have to stress this, the toilet in there does not have a lock. The quiet room does. So please, if you're going to the toilet in there, lock the quiet room door. I have learnt from mistake. If you need a space in that quiet room, feel free to lock it. It does lock from the inside. If you need a break and that room is locked, feel free to have a walk outside. We also have a park not far from here. Whatever you need to do just to take some space. But yeah, otherwise that quiet room is open, and obviously we have some fidget toys scattered all across the tables. Thanks so much, Carla, for grabbing those from Kmart. And I think for housekeeping, that's all I need to run through, so I'll pass back.
Thank you. Also, just to note that there are some accessibility features for the conference today, but also through the week. We have an Auslan interpreter in the conservatory room, and also closed captions for our friends that will be streaming online. I might go into the child safety section now, if that's okay. So just going to do a brief little bit of information to let you know that YACVic are a child safe organisation, which means it's our responsibility to make sure that you're safe while you're with us. On the slide there, it does detail a few mentions of abuse. I'm not going to read them out. They're just on the slide there so that you have an awareness of this. YACVic will ensure that all children and young people are safe at our events, as well as volunteers and staff, and we are responsible for your safety when you're with us. It's also to say that you're welcome to speak to us if you're experiencing any of these things. We'll listen to you and make sure that you're safe and get the support that you need. And you're probably wondering, who are the YACVic staff other than Corinne and I? So the lovely people that are floating around the room in a red t-shirt or a green t-shirt. If you're a YACVic staff member and you're not in these colours, could you please give us a wave or a dance or something fun? Beautiful, thank you everybody. All right, now over to, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Do you mind doing this? Yeah.
Alrighty, so we also have another special guest joining us, but it is not a person, it's a machine. We have the SCI test over there. Woohoo! So please give it a go, or at least have a look out and see what's up. If you need extra help with it, Ben and Dave, there we go, joining us today from the Centre of Excellence in Rural Sexual Health are here. It is for today only, so special guest appearance. But yeah, please have a look at it and give it a go. It's newfangled technology, things change all the time, and very excited about it. I will say as well before we go as well that some of the content we are going to talk about throughout the 3 days may be a bit triggering for some people. We are going to supply content warnings where possible. And obviously take care of yourself if you do feel a bit overwhelmed by the content. There's always our quiet room or always some nice nature outside to walk around. Although we do understand these discussions are really important to have, and we do acknowledge those topics may be triggering. So just holding space for that nuance in that circumstance. So yeah, please make sure to look after yourself and look after those around you and try and have fun, at least, yeah.
Couple more things and then we'll get into the fun stuff. We would ask that to get the most out of the sessions over the week, but also today, that you be present, really present in the space. We're here to connect, we're in person, oh my gosh, yay. And we really encourage the networking, chatting, connecting with each other. In saying that, though, we also do acknowledge that you'll have amazing, complex roles that you're in. So we definitely understand if you need to step away, if you need to attend with something urgent or important that's happening in your other role. We would just ask that you step outside to do that. So minimising of the laptops in the space if you can, and yeah, taking calls and things like that outside. Okay, thank you for bearing with us with all the housekeeping. Now it's time for the fun stuff. So we're going to hear from an exciting panel of rural superstars about current and future youth issues to the rural sector. The moderator for this session is the one and only Derm Ryan, who uses he, him pronouns, and is the head of YACVic Rural. If everyone's able to come to the stage, that would be amazing. Thank you. Give them a welcome.
Here we go.
Good job. You're going to introduce the others.
Yeah.
Okay.
You drop it in.
We do, but it says that you are doing. Okay.
Do we?
Do we take turns?
Okay, sure. Alrighty. There we go. So first up, we have Anne Murphy. Anne is the Executive Officer of the Glenelg and South Grampians Local Learning and Employment Network and a passionate advocate for young people and the sector. Anne was a member of the YACVic Rural Reference Group who successfully lobbied for funding for the Rural Presence Project nearly 9 years ago that led to the establishment of the program in the Great South Coast and Southern Mallee regions. So warm welcome for Anne Murphy.
Next up, we have our wonderful Tom Saxton, who is a YACVic young peer facilitator and student. Tom is a politics and computer science student from Shepparton with amazing experience in youth activism and advocacy, including Vic Congress and his awesome and powerful work, but I'm biased, at YACVic as a young peer facilitator.
And last but not least, we have Jemal. So Jemal is the Executive Manager, Programs and Services within the Centre for Multicultural Youth. With more than 30 years experience in the community and not-for-profit sector, Jemal has combined leadership and senior management experience, direct service delivery, policy and organisational development. Jemal is committed to community development principles and social justice and has experience and keen interest in developing and facilitating genuine and grassroots community participation and engagement. Warm welcome. And I'll pass over to Derm, who needs no introduction, but is the acting co-CEO and the leader for YACVic Rural. Take it away.
Thank you and welcome. I'd like to start by acknowledging Jackson's welcome for all of us. At YACVic, we often talk about the importance of Bunjil. And up until recently, we had a big sort of art installation of Bunjil. And we regularly talk about the importance of the connection that Bunjil made for all of us, because as an organisation that really values the voice of young people and an organisation that champions child-safe practices, Bunjil, of course, one of Bunjil's rules was that you look after the children when you're visiting somewhere. But it was really, really lovely that Jackson also focused on Bunjil's brother, on Wah, because we don't often have that opportunity to focus on Wah. And I really took from Wah the importance of ceremony. And often what we do in the work that we do is create opportunities for ceremony, for young people to come together, to talk with us, to tell us what's going on in their lives, and for us to be able to respond to that. For workers to come together in ceremony, like we are right now. In fact, rather than call things conference from now on, maybe we should start thinking of them as ceremonies, where there are rules to be observed, but a ceremony where people come together and listen and talk with each other and find solutions and gather and celebrate the things that we can be proud of, and also to create solutions to the things that concern us, which brings us to why we're here today. I wanted to really focus a little bit of the next couple of days on the specifics of the work that all of you do in various ways. But to kick things off, Karen Walsh and I were talking, and I must admit, Karen came up with the idea for this session and said, let's do a bit of a helicopter view at the beginning. Rather than getting into too much detail, let's look at the future. Let's talk about what's happening now and what does it mean for us going forward about the changes for the rural youth sector. And I really want to acknowledge the commitment that the Minister has made, not just in being our opening speaker, but a year ago when we were doing our Rural Youth Awards and her first event, and for the year in between, championing those things. When we advocate on issues, we know that you are listening and that you are working behind the scenes, often making things happen, working with your colleagues to ensure that the issues that are put in front of you are being actioned, that the whole of the responsibility for the portfolio doesn't just sit on you. It's a whole of government approach. And I think that the announcement about the youth work in TAFE is one of those examples of you advocating behind the scenes, working with your colleagues to get a result. So thank you. Thank you very much for that. So this session, I guess I wanted to have a bit of a chat about what is it that young people are expecting of us. And largely, some of the things that young people are expecting of us haven't changed a lot. They need secure housing. They need access to flexible education opportunities. They need the opportunity to come together, to hear from each other and to share their voices, to be able to advocate on issues that are important to them. They need to know that there is an active way that they can contribute to their local communities. And they also need to know that there are safe places for them to go. What do youth workers need in the sector? Well, what youth workers need is opportunities for secured employment. Over a long period of time, we've seen changes to the sector which have meant that security of employment isn't always guaranteed in this sector. And people need that. People have lives, they have families, they have mortgages, they have ongoing financial commitments. And short-term contracts are one of the issues that our sector is absolutely dealing with. I know that there's a lot of advocacy work happening at the moment towards ensuring that people are putting issues on the agenda with government, such as longer-term contracts, up to 7 years, to fit in line with long service leave and portable long service leave. Indexation has been very welcomed for the organisations that are able to access it, and we need to look at what happens for the organisations that aren't able to access indexation. What does that mean for their financial security going forward to ensure that they're not going backwards, that their service delivery is able to be met? In regional and rural areas, how do we continue to offer capacity development and high quality training to the workforce that we are here to support? There are lots of other things that workers need, but one of the things that rural youth workers need especially is the opportunity to break down isolation, the opportunity to come together and share with their colleagues. So what does government need from us? Well, increasingly we're moving towards a process of outcomes-related reporting and contracts which are acknowledging, looking at the impact. How do we measure the impact that we're having? Governments need to know that the investment that they're making in our organisations is going to deliver a return. Not just a return for the government, but a return for the local community, a return for the clients, and a return for the staff that are working in those organisations. These are some of the really important things that need to be put on the table and need to be advocated for. Additionally, governments need to know that organisations like ours will fiercely advocate on behalf of the communities that we work for. That is part of the social contract that we enter. It's not to be silent. It's not to not put things on the table because it might be a bit uncomfortable, or we might not get it, so we shouldn't say it, or it might jeopardise our funding, or it might annoy that other organisation down the road. It's really important that we continue in respectful and polite ways to put the issues that our community are bringing to us, that we are noticing, on the table with government and say, how do we enter into a process where we are moving forward with these issues? So I guess they're some of the things that the four of us are going to have a discussion about over the next 45 minutes or so. So I'm going to step away from this microphone and come and join my friends here. Anne, is there enough room for both of us on that couch? Right. Anne's very good at sharing. I'm on mic 3, good, and it's working. I also want to welcome anybody who's joining us online and say thanks very much for tuning in. We wish you could be here in person, but we understand, being rural workers, that often the online option is the best way to go forward. So, Anne, I think we should start the conversation with you, if that's okay. You can pick up a mic and get ready.
Be careful, I might sing a song.
Well, I think we'd enjoy that, but maybe we'll save the song to the end. I just want to kick off by, often we look at the problems, we look at the concerns, we look at the things that annoy us. Let's take the opportunity to change tracks. And what are the positives? What are the things that we can celebrate about our sector and about the contribution that young people are making before we move into what's ahead for young people?
I've actually got a bit of concern about being here because I'm not a trained youth worker. I'm an educationalist and have been working around educational disadvantage for a long, long time, probably a lot longer than some of the people in the room. But one of the things I've seen, and I really think is so evident in the youth sector, and by that I mean not just those trained youth workers who are in the room. By the way, how many people here are officially trained youth workers?
Put your hand up. So less than a third, I would say.
So I celebrate you and well done, but I also celebrate everyone else in this room because in rural communities and the areas in which I work, we don't have that many trained youth workers. For us, it's about those people who work passionately and tirelessly for youth in whatever sector that they're in. And for me, I just love the fact that partnership and participation and making sure that our young people are at the centre of our work, whatever our background, is really huge and really important. And I have to say that the skills that I've seen in the sector around participation, collaboration for the best of our young people is just outstanding. And the sector is just absolutely amazing. So to all of those who have been fortunate and are very skilled in youth work, I celebrate you, but I also celebrate all of the rest of us generalists who are just doing our best we can to make life better for young people in our community.
A great place to start, and it reminds me of some work that has been happening led by YACVic Rural for a couple of years around the need to support people working in mental health. And we've did some work with Origin, and they have offered a specific course on youth mental health for peer workers and training them up. And they, through our advocacy and our partnership work, they have offered scholarships, particularly for First Nations and regional and rural peer workers to join that program. And with what you were saying, it reminds me that there is, less than a third of the room are trained workers. And I wonder whether there's opportunities to work with our university partners to think about, is there a way that we could do something similar, where we could do some bridging courses where people are able to skill up on the things that are really important so that they do have a qualification in youth work? And maybe that's one of the opportunities that's come out of that observation that you've made.
Yeah, I'd just like to preface that with, I'm not saying unskilled. I am not saying unskilled. People have their areas of expertise, and we know that a young person has many, many needs, and we need a holistic view of a young person. They're not one-dimensional, and nor should the response for young people be one-dimensional. So in lots of ways, I actually think in some ways that's a benefit, because no one can be good at everything. So we've got, if we use partnership well, all these skills at our disposal to support the young people within our community. So I just wanted to preface that, because I think there's a lot of stuff that our generalist workers and our workers in rural communities can show others because they know how to work together.
Just before I move on to Jemal, and staying with this theme, what do you think the learning and development needs of the sector are? You've tapped into something that I think is really important. Often the youth workers in rural communities, or the workers in rural communities, have skills but are doing a couple of different jobs as well. So youth might be 2 days a week of the program area that they're looking after, and there might be other things that they're doing as well. Do you think that there are specific development needs?
We've all got needs. I have more than most, I think. But look, I guess one of the issues is around partnership is a skill. We don't always naturally have those skills about what's a really good and meaningful partnership. It has to be a win-win for everyone. So how do we learn and develop and broker those skills and those arrangements in a local community? I think given the space that we're in around evaluation, for me, I don't know about you, but I think I must have fallen asleep when that was on the agenda when I was at uni a long time ago. So, you know, what are the skills and what are the capabilities that we need to learn around that and to be able to do that effectively, to really show the outcomes. We see the outcomes every day. We see them in the street. We see them at the footy. We see them whatever. But how do we demonstrate that real fabulous work to the individual that we and the impact that we've had on their lives and often on the lives of their children and the children after them? So we've got to get better at that, I think, as a sector. So I think that's one area. The other is in a tightening fiscal environment, and unfortunately we're all in that, getting dollars is pretty hard. And again, if you're like in an agency like mine, there's 3.2 people in my whole organisation. We don't have a great big fundraising team. We don't have lots of experts doing that stuff. So, you know, what are some skills around that space that we can do? And I think that'd be very, very useful. Obviously, on top of all the other things that we need for different target groups that we may need to work better with. But also in working in our communities, and even advocacy is another one that I think we all need to get a bit better at as well.
I think that's a great point about both evaluation but also the getting the dollars. And I think about the Working for Victoria project that YACVic led on across the sector. I think about Future Proof, which is the work that we're doing with 14 partners in the disaster space. And the common theme there is a collective impact approach. So where we're all signing up together, and it touches on that point of partnership because those sort of projects need to be able to articulate really clearly what each person's or organisation's role is in the partnership and defining that and understanding that what you do collectively can actually give you a much bigger bite at the pie. It's attractive to government because with central coordination, you're allowing for partners to be able to spend the resources better in their local communities directly rather than everybody taking money out for the coordination. So if you've got that collective impact, having central coordination, central communication, but being really alive and alert to the changes in local community, the little things that happen in a local community that can knock over a small organisation for a couple of months, and how do you collectively support people to be able to continue with delivering the outcomes in that way. But I want to move over to Jemal. And Jemal, sticking with the good news and celebration stories, you work with migrant and refugee communities, both in the city and the rural. I mean, CMY started as a project of YACVic and I think now is much bigger than YACVic. We love that success story. What are some of the good news things that you're seeing for both the workers in the sector and for the young people that you're working with?
I might answer that by, because on the drive here I was actually reflecting on this and trying to pick something that was encouraging, motivational, inspirational for everybody. But I think the current climate we're in now, it also seems a little bit cute to start from that process. There's a lot of things that are happening internationally, as we see in occupied Palestine and Gaza. There is a lot that's happening here locally as a result of the international divisions, but also as a result of the extremely disappointing referendum outcome, which has devastated many people I know and many communities I'm connected with. And there is also, for our young people, a continuing experience of racism and discrimination and disconnection. There is a deterioration in the capacity of young people's resilience and the impacts on their mental health right across Australia, cities, urban areas and rural areas as well. And that's the reality we're all operating in. The positive from that for me are exactly what you guys have just been talking about. You know, we talk about tight fiscal environments, but come on guys, whenever hasn't the youth sector been in a tight fiscal environment? Whenever have we been funded properly? But that's not to say we should be happy with that just because that's been our experience in reality. We have to raise our voices. We have to join together. And that's the thing that encourages me. I'm involved in lots of very innovative projects at the moment around true collaboration, unpicking what we mean by that. And it's not just about partnering or co-locating or going to network meetings. It has to be deep and meaningful. And I think our sector is open to that. Our sector has the genetic makeup to do that work really well. And I think that's positive. Yes, we haven't had proper youth work qualification, but we have amazing people and always have had amazing people in our sector. And that's another positive thing, I think, for us to, to hitch our wagon to, if you like. And although these are great innovations in terms of a youth work qualification, we have so much positives to bring to that. And then the other side of it is, if we always try and put young people at the centre of everything, is young people are there, they want to be part of this journey. They want to have voice, they want to have influence, they want to be involved, and we're seeing that in our rural work at Centre for Multicultural Youth. We're seeing that in very neglected, disadvantaged communities on the outskirts of Melbourne, that young people are saying, hey, our community needs us, we will step up. And we saw that during COVID. Young people actually were the solution, particularly in the flats in Melbourne. They stepped up and they took over and they sorted it. So we have young people of great talent, great skill, great motivation, but the problems are really deep, they're entrenched, and we all need to work together. And if we don't work together, those problems will overwhelm us.
I'm struck by the talk about collaboration and how we take that deeper. There's a First Nations concept known as Dadiri, and it means deep listening and deep calling to deep. And I wonder whether there's opportunities for us to learn more about that concept when we're entering into partnerships, for us to come together and truly understand each other's position on something. Not agree on it, but understand, to listen, to sit in a quiet place, to listen, to reflect, to walk in somebody else's shoes, in order for the journey that we're going to have together in our collaboration to be successful. We need to maybe slow down a bit and come together and really listen in order to commence that collaboration. The point that you raised there about young people in the flats was so obvious to so many of us that that often in these environments, young people become the interpreters, not just of language, but of intention, of what's actually happening, to explain what's going on. What are the things that you can control? What are the things you can't control? And how do we get that information loop out? And I think a lot of the time that is what we do with youth workers. So that often youth workers and the youth sector is the interpretation point, listening to young people. What's happening? What do you need to know? What do we need to be informing you about? And what information do we need to be taking from your lived experience and translating that back to the community that we're working with so that we can work more effectively? Yeah. Tom, don't worry, I'm coming to you now. Let's start with a little bit of, the theme of, what are the good news things? You've been in the sector in a couple of different roles for a couple of years now. What are some of the celebration observations that you would have, or the good news stories?
So I think the good news stories for me, I think the good news stories for me is seeing the long-term impacts of some of the work you do. So in my line of work, it's a lot of training young people about how to advocate for yourself, how to advocate for your community. And some of the short-term impacts you can see is 5 minutes after a meeting or something, they might come away with either a plan to do something or, they might know who their representatives are. And that's great, but the long-term impacts, what kind of differentiates the long-term impacts is being able to come back, whether it's in a month, 3 months, something like that, and actually being able to talk to them and then finding out all the kind of things that they've done with this knowledge. So instead of, just coming up with a plan to talk to your school principal about a problem or to try and, look at an area that's filled with litter in the community or something, you come back 3-6 months later and the young people have actually fixed it. So they've, I know there's one really key thing in Benalla that comes to mind in which, there was an area around a lakes, I think, that was filled with litter. The young people came up with a plan and they had a spring cleaning day and they were able to clean it themselves. And that's directly young people empowering themselves. So that's the best thing, I reckon.
And you've been doing a little bit of work as well with communities impacted by disasters and floods. What were some of the observations that you can walk away with there? Because you're looking at a particular crisis point and then at what's the long-term impact that we can be making?
That we can be making as a youth sector?
Yeah, as the youth sector. And as young people, what is the long-term impact that young people want to be making?
So I think disaster, I'm in Shepparton, I live there. We had the floods last year that was pretty bad. We had the Defence Force come through, and that was really unique for me because I guess I've very much been detached from a lot of that, and seeing it firsthand in my own community is very confronting. And being so attached to it and also a part of the youth sector is really integral because it makes you a lot more passionate about it. But in terms of, I think what the young people that I've seen in Shepparton and in disaster-prone areas come across is that when they've had an issue, I feel like traditionally young people sometimes get a bad rap, whether it's in the media, a current affair, you always see this gang of youths doing whatever. We all know. But, sometimes young people don't get enough credit. And in times of extreme stress, like a natural disaster, the young people really step up because they've got to. And they're given the opportunity, they're given the platform out of necessity, and they prove themselves.
That's excellent observations about young people stepping up and also about them not getting the credit. And I think there's opportunities in there for us to be thinking about, how do we work with the media, even if it's just local media, because sometimes that's the best, in telling those good news stories about where young people are stepping up and how they're making a difference. I'm going to start moving back to Anne because I want to have a bit of a chat about disparities between metro and rural, and obviously everybody can chime in, and then I'm going to move on to workforce because I know that came up as a bit of an issue for all of us, and what are we doing there? There are disparities between metro and rural communities. I guess I'd love to know what we think is driving it, and then what are we doing to arrest it, to turn it around? And maybe it's not about always having the answers, it's just about saying, here are the disparities. But I know that particularly from the background of working in education and looking at how we improve that, because we know the difference it makes, what you've noticed about those disparities. Are they getting bigger? And what can we do?
You shouldn't have opened this topic because I'll be here for hours, so, you know, I'll see you all next week. This is my biggest bugbear, and having I've lived in rural and I've lived in metro communities, and I've loved all of them. But one of the things that I've really noticed upon over many years, unfortunately, of my career is that we've never been able to shift the dial around outcomes for our rural young people. And, you know, I've thought long and hard about that, as have many other real superstars who've done the work on that. And a lot of that, we've got some systemic issues around the way that we're dealing with our rural communities and for our young people. They're more likely to have poor health outcomes, educational attainment 22% lower than their metro counterparts. You look at across any of the outcomes that we're all looking at, we'll see that young people in rural areas are below the 8 ball than their metro cousins. Now, to me, I've got a bit of an overdeveloped sense of fairness, and that's for my sins and probably for yours as well. Certainly for my brothers, when he used to pour the lemonade in the 2 glasses and he wanted to grab the big one because I'd get the ruler out. It is not correct and it is not right that we have a system that says 30% of our population in rural areas don't get as fair a go. A lot of that is about our access to services and opportunities. And that, unfortunately, as best we all can do, that is something that is really a government responsibility. It needs to be looked at clearly. We need to have, I think, a much stronger voice around this inequity that is being faced by our young people. I'll give you an example. At the moment, you may have heard about the senior secondary reform. So every student, no matter where they live, will have access to all these opportunities. Well, not in my area, they won't. And it's pretty damn frustrating. And you go, well, you know, why are our kids second-class citizens? They're not. They've got so much potential. They're so practical. They're so innovative. They're so fabulous. But because they live in a certain part of the community, they are going to have less opportunities. And then the other bugbear I have, sorry, Dermot, but the other bugbear is country kids don't have as high aspirations as other kids. Do they know a country kid? Country kids are practical. It's just not doable. Yes, I would like to go to uni, but you know what? My family can't afford it. I can't get there. I can't access it. I don't know how to get the dollars to get to where I need to go. There's no TOEFL in my region. I have got no licence. My parents can't afford the petrol in the car. There's no public transport. I mean, all of these issues, I don't want to go on because you all know it. You're doing it. You're living it day to day. But I feel sometimes that we really need to have another look at the way in which we, the policies that we have and the rollouts of new programs, because we know every election cycle there's another lovely, here's the bright and shiny thing that we're going to bring out for all of you, and aren't you really lucky? Great. They're always, well, not always, most times, trialled in a really big community, and that's great and that works well. And then when we do, if we do, get those fabulous new shiny things, we find it doesn't work in our communities. It's just not practical. And you go, well, maybe we need to, when we're actually developing up some of these fabulous policies and rollouts of different initiatives, maybe we should actually talk to some country young people, and we should talk to some country people in the sector and go, well, we're thinking about doing this. What do you reckon? What would work in your community? And I guess my feeling is that if we, in all our policies, it appears, we're going for the universal, the generalist, the universal. It'll work for most. But it's further disadvantaging disadvantaged communities, and I'm not just talking about rural communities. I just really feel that if, and I'm preempting you, Dermot, but if policymakers actually designed policies that worked for the other communities, the communities that don't fit, the disadvantaged communities, the priority groups, the rural groups, if it works for our communities, it's going to work for everyone. What a fabulous system that would be. But we always design the other way, and we leave the other 30% out. Bad luck. Doesn't work for you. We've forgotten about you because actually you're too far away and we don't see you. We don't know who you are. We have no voice. Or we could do what Ireland did. They decentralised their whole country, and now so that they've made every department, every minister, every senior bureaucrat are based in regional areas around the country. So the tax department's in Sligo, and the Department of Education's in Kilkenny, and Department of Justice is in somewhere else. But you know what? They got a real experience of what it's like to live in a rural community. And some of the decisions made a lot more sense after that time. So anyway, I won't talk for hours, Jim.
No, that's okay. And I'm hoping that the other two might jump in here, because you also touched on something there about, I'm not just talking about rural communities. And I think that what that sort of strikes is that we can have multiple identities, and the concept of individual intersectionality, I guess, which I think you're picking up on, and how we address that as well. So I'm keen to hear from both Tom and Jemal about how those disparities are being observed in the spaces that you live and work, and with the communities that you're working with.
I'll just have a very short and sweet point. Shepparton, definitely for Shepparton, and I think it's very, very likely for a lot of other regional and rural places, this disparity starts from when you're born. So this data is backed up by the Australian Early Development Census, which tracks vulnerabilities in very young children. And what I've seen in Shepparton, at least, is that if you're a young person born in Shepparton, you are highly likely to have a lot more vulnerabilities and development learning issues growing up. And that's from preschool. So really what we need to be doing with policy is not just trying to try and reach equilibrium. We really need to go a little bit overzealous on it, on the basis that this is now a generational issue. And the generational issue is backed up by the fact that these kids are vulnerable before they're in schooling. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, in terms of the disparities, I think that point about it's not just rural communities is really resonates with me, because we work in rural communities. We also work in metro areas, and we work in the outer metro areas. And some of the communities we work with have such entrenched disadvantage. They're so far behind the eight ball, as you're saying, Anne. But the funding models do not take that into account. They do not take into account that to work with a community that is so far behind the eight ball, you need more time, you need more resources, you need greater skills, and you need stability, and you need a long-term vision. That's not how funding works. Usually those communities, because they have intense needs, attract actually the opposite. They attract 12 months funding, they attract minimum funding, and then, our rural work for a long time, it's same with you, I would imagine, Derm, it's been funded 12-month contracts, for ages. It was funded for. We would say to our staff in May, we don't know if we can offer you a job in July because the government hasn't told us whether they're going to fund it. And most of the funding for our rural work has been at standstill budget. So every year, it is less disposable income on those projects. But because it's rural, we're expected to be able to manage that, and we're expected to be able to make that stretch. But in fact, it's harder to manage it and it's harder to stretch it. And so the funding model is actually inverse to the need. It's the opposite way around. When you're working with extremely disadvantaged communities with entrenched need, you know, when some of the communities in the outer metro areas I'm talking about, we work with the South Sudanese community in the outer metro areas. 70% of all young people in criminal detention right now are of African South Sudanese descent. Sorry, 55%, and 70% are multicultural overall. So we do lots of work with that community to empower them around the early intervention work to make sure young people don't get into the system, but we're expected to do it on limited funding, short-term tenure, and not knowing whether the next 12 months is funded or not. And it's the same. So it's the same for the rural. It's the same for those of high need, and that needs to change. And we can't forever plug that gap, even though we try year after year. When I say we, I'm talking about us as the whole sector, not just my own organisation. We try, but there comes a point where, as you say, Anne, government has to step up. They have to think and act smarter than they currently do, because what they're doing is, it's not just about how much money they save, it's so much how much investment they don't make. And that investment is in rural youth, rural communities. It's in those communities that are doing it tough. Those young people, the potential is being curtailed by poor government decisions.
I think that part of the intention for government to redress some of this is in moving towards an outcomes framework. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because we could sort of stay here for an hour. And part of what you've just said there is about the loss of investment. So when we look at the early intervention investment framework, EIFS, I think, is going to be an acronym that people may become more familiar with over time. And I think that there's a key opportunity here. There's a risk and an opportunity. So when we're moving towards an outcome-based framework where we're looking at the long-term impacts and how do we measure that over a period of time, and we're bringing in an early investment framework, there is the opportunity to say, here is the money that government have saved in acute services because of the way in which we're shifting the system. Now, I think the conversation needs to not stop there, but government have an opportunity to come back to community and say, because of all of this money that we've saved in not having to do acute services, how would you recommend we invest that money into your communities in prevention programs to continue this process? And I'm sure you've all got 2 or 3 things that you would want the investment into your communities. So it might be an opportunity to hear what they are. If government said to you, you've saved 2.7 million over a year because we don't have to use these acute services, what would you invest that 2.7 million in? The risk, I think, is that that 2.7 million goes out of the bucket. Obviously, those figures are not real. But I think the opportunity is to say, let's keep that 2.7 million, and this is how we would say it needs to be spent. Do you think that's a proposition we could work with?
I think if we can show how the cost savings, if you like, of our work, and that needs to be reinvested where they've been achieved, it's a good principle. problem, or not the problem, the worry I have is that it's magic bullet stuff again. We're being asked to go, give us a magic bullet so we can fund something that will fix the whole of the rural communities, whole of the outer metro areas, and will fix youth justice issues. Magic bullet services, programs, models don't exist. So I would be advocating, let's say 2.7 million is the amount they're offering, that they fund the collaborative approaches of a group of organisations working in partnership and power sharing with community to determine what they need to do to make young people thrive, and not have a magic bullet program or model which it doesn't exist. We waste so much of our energy, time, going, here's a model, fund it, it's going to fix the world. I have never seen one in my 40 years of being involved in the sector.
I can see Anne wants to say something as well, and Tom, I'll bring him in. You can have my mic, Anne.
You might like this back. Look, I just totally agree. We live in rural areas. We love our areas. We're invested in our areas. We're invested in our community. We're invested in our young people. But we know these are wicked problems. These are not, let's do the quick fix. Oh, I fixed that. I've fixed world hunger. Now tomorrow I'll go on to war. Do you know what I mean? Like, this does not happen. And we really do need a different mindset. There has to be a different mindset. I agree with you. It's about local communities, whether that be a rural community or a cultural community. They are best placed to identify what the barriers and the issues are, and to come and resolve those issues and work with each other to resolve those issues. And that's the challenge. I think you're talking about collective impact. Like, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go far, go together. And I think as a sector we're really good at that. And I think as rural, reps, we're really good at that. We work together really well. But this is a really difficult concept for government, and it's not one that I think that they really understand either. Partnership, we've seen the silos. We know a young person, as we said before, is not one-dimensional. They're a real person. There's a whole lot of things that impact on the quality of their life and them being the best that they can possibly be. So we need everyone's voice around the table, all the expertise, and we need people who are invested in the solution. So I agree with you. I'd love to see that happen, but I can't see it happening because then it's too hard. Because which bucket will that money come out of? Will that come out of education? Or maybe that's health, or maybe that's justice, or maybe that's, some little extra bucket that they've got for, a nice trip overseas. I don't know. But, where do we get those buckets? And I guess one of my challenges is, and I would really like to see, and potentially it's a solution, is, we've got the LSEC, so it's the head of all the department heads of every department, and they all meet together to talk about issues and shared problems. So maybe they could actually come and learn from some of our communities, and maybe we could share and train them in partnership and collaboration, because I think until we get that picture right, it's going to be a pretty hard one to fix. Sorry, I've gone off on another tangent. Okay.
Stay on point.
So Derm, going back to the outcomes-based model, my understanding is that this is a pretty classic evidence-based policy design philosophy. And my concern with this is that I just don't think it'll work in trying to measure the variables of young people, because young people are so different to one another, and measuring the outcomes of young people in Shepparton versus Benalla versus Bendigo, you're going to get different data sets. Even with the same group of young people, you're going to get different data sets. But I guess my concern as well is the kind of issues you see with an over-reliance on evidence-based policy philosophy is that while it is safe politics and safe policy, because when something goes wrong, politicians can point to the evidence and say, we were just basing our decisions on outcomes. The risk is that you kind of deviate your policy making from the qualitative data for what's actually going on in the ground. And And unless you've got a really transparent and open government, which I feel like they're kind of antonyms with the word government, they're very opposites, transparent and open, it's just not going to work. You're just going to create a policy-making environment where it's very insular and it's very insulated. And while you might have an organisation like YACVic be able to pierce through that kind of policy bubble a little bit, your smaller organisations are the ones that are going to miss out so much because they're just not going to be able to pierce through it.
So you've given me an opportunity to jump in a different direction, so thank you for that. What do the three of you think is the opportunity for YACVic specifically to work with smaller communities? Because I think that the outcome policy movement is coming or is here. And there's an opportunity for us to ensure that smaller communities don't get left behind, because we all know that if you lose an organisation or a smaller community in the move to a new policy agenda, it's going to cost you a lot more to pick them up. So are there things that you would recommend that YACVic and YACVic Rural in particular do to ensure that we are wrapping ourselves around some of those smaller communities, or even CMY in this case, because we both have portfolios to work with selected parts of regional and rural Victoria, obviously more capacity in some areas than others. But what would you recommend we do as an organisation to ensure that we're bringing opportunities to the smaller organisations and the smaller regional and rural communities? And how do we best reflect what we're hearing back from those communities if a system that we're moving to doesn't capture the unique outcomes that are being created in those smaller communities? And any three of you can jump in on that. It's not an easy question. Anne, do you want to start?
I'll give it a bash. You may wish I didn't. Look, I don't know. We're small fry. I'm a leader of a very small, very effective, absolutely brilliant organisation in the southwest. I love our organisation and we do great work. But I'm not a politician. In fact, I'm very far from a politician. I say it as it is. But there are things that need to be said. And I think probably over the last couple of years with YACVic and the YACVic Rural program, I would appreciate the opportunity to contribute more to having the voices of our very, very real concerns. I'm really worried about my communities, and it doesn't matter about me. I'm not looking after my job because I'll be retired in a couple of years and maybe doing art or doing, God knows what I'll be doing, drinking too much probably. But the issue is our communities, you know, they are really struggling. Our kids are struggling. Anyone who's on the ground is struggling. We're really stretched. And what's worse, we don't have a voice. We don't know how to express it. And I think we really need from you, as the peak body for the sector, to become more active in the rural space in particular, because there are movements going on, well, certainly in education, which indicate that they're trying to decrease our local place-based supports, and we don't have many of them left. And they're the glue that often sort of pulls together people and helps that collaboration. So we really need a strong advocacy. So I think the reinvigoration of the statewide rural reference group, we've got more broader communities, we've got more broader workers working out in community, and I think that's great. But you're really good at advocating for it. You know the political system, and I think we need to hear a stronger voice, and we need to be able to contribute to that in a much clearer way. So I'd really appreciate that, because I think that's something we can't do. In lots of ways, we're really good in our own community, but that's something that we cannot do, or certainly I can't do very well, that's for sure. So that's one thing, you know, help us with our voice. But the other thing is it's around the real listening too, because everything is different and all our needs are different, and maybe some of them are competing. So that's a little bit tricky. and it's tricky to report to government too. But again, those differences and the nuances of our different communities and the needs of our different young people also have to be expressed up, because we're doing the best for the young people in our communities, and we're working bloody hard, and we're doing a great job. Love this sector, but a bit of a hand would be really useful in that. I guess the other thing too is around some of that support I was saying there about evaluation. How do we best show? How do we show the meaning of the work that we do every day that we know is just crucial? How do we do that, and what are the measures and the ways that we can measure our work better? And so, for example, most significant change, for example, getting that narrative around the difference that our work makes. It's not numbers, because we're always going to lose on the numbers thing. I mean, oh my God, that just annoys me. Half of our communities, we're not statistically representational or something. You know more than that, Tom, than me. But anyway, I didn't listen to statistics either. But, our numbers aren't meaningful enough for government to actually pay attention to. So we've got to be really good on our stories, and we've got to be able to reflect that back about this is real life and this is what this means.
Thank you. I very quickly want to get to workforce. What is the issue driving the need in workforce? We've got people not staying as long, recruitment is hard. Why? What do we collectively do about it? And what is YACVic's role? So let's keep it within that. And then I'm going to move to the final question.
Yeah, just wanted to, just on that last question though, I think Anne's got it absolutely right. Amplify the voices of the people who know, who are the experts. That's our role, I think, as Centre for Multicultural Youth, and I know that YACVic see that as their role as well. So collaborating with communities to get them to speak for themselves and to tell their own stories is the way, is our obligation really, I think, around that. In terms of workforce, I think in your opening remarks, you essentially covered it really. We need good, skilled people who can rely on a living from the work that they do. And that means funding has to be, and commitment has to be in the long term. We have lost so many people because we cannot guarantee them a living wage, because we can only offer them 2 days a week work, or 3 days a week, or only 12-month contracts or 18-month contracts, and then we leave them hanging for weeks and weeks before they know if they got another contract. And this is because where we started talking about funding and the lack of government commitment to funding this work properly means that transfers down to our staff. That transfers down to the youth work, because who don't see youth work as a profession, because we can't offer them a wage, we can't offer them a way to support themselves and their families. So they look for other options, and who wouldn't in that context? So we need people to see youth work as not just something valuable you do for young people and for your community, but as something you do that requires skill, that will give you a living, that will give you progression, and that will establish a career for yourselves. In the cities, we have that to some extent, not ideal even there, but in rural areas, we find that is extremely difficult to establish for people.
Thank you. Tom, any observations on these two before we move to the last question with less than 5 minutes to go?
I'm sure that's not a hint to be very quick then. So I prepared a big lecture. Being very quickly though, I think I'm a YACVic staff, so I'm probably a little bit biased in regards to our advocacy efforts, but as someone who, I value my community more than my job, but I think we need to expand our advocacy capacity and be able to let communities direct where that capacity goes to answer that very quickly. And then as the young youth worker or the youth worker on the panel, I think what I see of my friends who like to stay in the job and ideally move up to higher positions within an organisation, the things that I often see separate them from people who might decide to move on to a different thing is that they've found the thing that they're passionate about. And I think in everywhere in youth work, young or youth workers are going to have areas where they're passionate about things and then less passionate about other things. I found I'm really passionate about civics and electoral participation with young people. And through YACVic, I've been able to kind of explore that a little bit more. So I think the youth sector needs to be a little bit more flexible and promote networking opportunities for young people to experience what it's like working at other places or the work that other places do, so they can find their passion and be able to pursue it.
Thank you, and I love that concept of I love my community more than I love my job. I think that's just so beautifully put. Thank you. The last question for all of you is, how would you like us to feed this back to government? Not just the things that have come up here, but I guess the things that are going to come forward for the next 2.5 days. What's our role in feeding that back to government? Who wants to kick us off? Tom, you've got a mic in your hand. You can start. Then we'll move to Anne and finish with Jemal.
Is it okay to say I'm not sure? But ideally, I'd like it to be effective. And the issue with government is to actually get actions on things. It can take years. It can take a really long time, and you're just not sure how valuable your actual feedback was. So I'd like some kind of timeline or some kind of measurement to be able to see that this is what we were able to do with this feedback.
I'd like it to be loud. I'd like it to be forward, because we need some change, and I'd like it to be actions.
Everything everyone has said, I think it's very difficult because government works in particular cycles, which is usually the next election or next 2 years in the lead up to the next election, and that makes it difficult. But I think it's about it's not about a paper to government saying this is what the outcomes of the conference. It's not about YACVic presenting or CNY or anybody else presenting on their own. I think we've got to present as a sector, and I think it's taking multiple voices to government from here. So representatives of the communities in which we're talking about who can speak directly to government. When we talk at CNY, when we are invited to present on youth issues, we invariably always take a young person with us who has a lived experience. And to be honest, what that tends to do in a room, particularly if there's a minister, is we get ignored and the young person gets all the engagement. But they speak from their lived experience, they speak the truth. Look, when I walk in a room, the expectation is I will say certain things. People have an expectation. He's a professional from this. He'll bring this perspective. He'll ask for resources. He'll ask for long-term funding. He'll ask for these things. When a young person speaks, it actually is so new, particularly to politicians, to hear an eloquent, informed young person speaking from their lived experience and the lived experience of their peers. It's extremely powerful. And I think we can mirror that in terms of the rural advocacy work, is to make sure that rural people are in the room with ministers and with politicians.
Thank you. This has been a great way to kickstart the next couple of days. I really want to thank the three of you for joining us. I know you've all travelled. Some of you have travelled a lot further than others, and I really appreciate the commitment that you bring, not just to us as a peak body, but to your own communities, and that's evident when we turn up and when we work alongside you. So I might just ask everybody to please join me in thanking Anne, Tom and Jemal. Back to you in the studio, Finn.
Thank you, Derm, and thank you to our wonderful panel members, Tom, Jemal and Anne. It was a really insightful conversation and something I'm going to be sitting with as we go through the rest of the week, and I hope you all are as well. and just echoing Derm's statement that it was a really great way to start. Awesome. So now I would like to introduce our fabulous Sam Champion for a mini keynote presentation on youth participation. I'm just going to read Sam's bio while he comes up. Sam oversees the engagement and participation of young people across the varied work of YACVic. He supports the youth sector through delivering trainings on youth participation and ethical practice with young people. Sam manages projects that place young people at the centre of decision-making processes, and including a team of young peer facilitators who design and lead training and other workshops for and with young people. Sam also coordinates the Youth Participation Practice Network, or the YPPN, a community of practice for workers across Victoria supporting young people in youth participation, engagement and leadership roles. Thanks, Sam.
Thank you very much. It's a real privilege to be up here. My name's Sam. I go by he and him pronouns. And it's a real privilege to be on Dja Dja Wurrung country today. I'd like to pay respects to elders past and present and thank them for their ongoing custodianship for this beautiful land. A quick visual description of me. I am a small but mighty 5'7" tall. I have glasses, I have white skin, I have short hair on my head and on my face, and I have what I think is a lovely burnt ochre linen hemp style short sleeve shirt. Audio description, I'm a POM, but I've lived here for 10 years, so my vowels are getting elongated and my consonants are getting softer over time. It wasn't meant to be that cute, but yeah, thanks. All right, I'll go with that. Folks, a mini keynote speech, I think, is a test drive. It's a test drive for the main section, which is going to happen after your break. I'm going to speak for about 6 minutes. You'll then get 10-minute comfort break, and you're going to come back and you've got a choice. You get to decide whether you stay in this room to talk about youth participation in practice, tools of the trade, or whether you go next door into the atrium and talk about participation as pathways into employment and into other avenues within organisations. So I just wanted to give you a little test drive and a few things to look out for in these conversations that are going to be coming up. Why youth participation? I think Jemal really spoke to the point for me. We need youth participation now more than ever because young people are facing unprecedented challenges, but as our community. And youth participation is about partnership. It's about collaboration. And as Anne said, collaboration is not always easy. It's not always inherent, and it's not always encouraged in our practice as individuals in the kind of society that we live in. I'm not going to get political, but you know what I mean. Youth participation is a human right. It's a human right written into the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, Article 12. Young people have the right to be heard on issues that impact them. Youth participation is also written into the Code of Ethical Practice for the Victorian youth sector. It's a key principle in which anybody working with young people should be considering what young people want from that service. What outcome are they looking for? What works for them? And it's also written into the Child Safe Standards as a protective factor. Youth participation, the empowerment of young people, the ability for young people to be heard, to have their voice recognised and acted upon, is a safety and protective mechanism. Where young people are heard in organisations, they're more likely to be safe. So these are three absolutely key foundational aspects of the work that we do across the sector in our varied environments and in varied contexts as well. The kinds of things you're going to hear people in the panels talking about are around respect. Respect for identity, respecting individual identity, respecting lived experience, respecting intersectionality. How does that lived experience play out for that individual young person? Where do those cross-sections of marginalisation impact that young person? respect for diversity, respect for inclusion and accessibility. We are also going to hear people talking about the commitments, the kind of mindsets that we have as workers. Many of us have these mindsets from our own values and our own beliefs, but they're also skills that can be grown over time. The kind of commitment to ongoing growth, us as individuals recognizing that we're always changing, that society is always changing, and most importantly, young people are always changing. We cannot say stay still. We cannot use old practices that have always worked. We have to ask the young people that we're working with what they need, what they expect, and what can help them to participate in the work that we're doing with them. A commitment to meaningful change, meaningful participation. We're not talking about tick box, tokenistic youth participation that says we tried, or young people told us what we already knew. Meaningful youth participation is about going out to young people early in our processes so that we can actually listen and we can actually act on the things that they've told us. What can we do differently? And I think it's a commitment to that growth and that change. And they're not things that we're seeing play out across society. Again, as Jemal said, we've had a referendum recently. We've had that had terrible outcomes for the progress of our society as a whole towards reconciliation. We've had a year in which rainbow community members have been under threat, literally under attack, and have had to protect themselves, sometimes go behind closed doors to close off events, not advertise them widely because they've needed to be safe. And we've had young people being told that they're lazy or they're cheating because they're making use of technology in school. ChatGPT, young people using the creative resources at their disposal being told that they're cheats or that they're lazy. These things don't add up. These things don't create healthy relationships between older people and younger people. They do not create safe, respectful, inclusive, and accessible environments. And so how do we do that? How do we break it down? These are the things that they're going to be talking about in the panels, folks. The last thing that I think we need to look out for is that exchange. This is mutual benefit. We're not just talking about the human right of a young person to get involved. We're not just talking about the safety and protectionism and paternalism of our work. We're talking about an exchange, an understanding that we all benefit. The more we participate, the more we benefit. Anne already said it. If you want to go fast, you jump in a fast car and go fast. I'm loving the analogy, the metaphor of the potholes to path possibilities. If we want to go far, we do it together. It takes time, it takes resourcing, it takes hard work, it takes learning, it takes failure, being told we've done it wrong. And but we all benefit. We all benefit from that long journey. And we benefit as individuals as well as organizations. Our organizations learn from young people. How can we overcome some of the challenges that we face as an organization? How do we do that together? But also, what do I learn? The older I get, the more distance there is between me and a young person, age-wise. But the closer I can get by listening, by being able to sit and to listen more than I speak, enables me to hear what young people are experiencing. Yeah, I was young once. Of course I was. We all were, but I've never been young in 2023. I've never been young through a global pandemic. I've never been young when I've been able to access the internet to answer my assignments online. I don't know what that's like for a young person to feel those things. The only way I can learn is by asking and talking to them. And then how do I fiercely act on that? The advocacy, taking that into my work. Again, that's about mindset. That's about exchange of information, and it's about advocating for the young people that we work with. When those young people aren't in the room, getting them in the room is important. Jemal's told us people listen. Politicians listen. Decision makers do listen to young people. I'm not convinced they always act on it. There's a lot of lip service done, but they do listen. And that's at least a start, I guess. But when they're not in the room, we fiercely advocate for them, right? That's the work that we do as youth workers or people who work in the youth sector as well. So I've gone over. That was bound to happen, wasn't it? I've eaten into our time. Sorry, folks. Let's take a short break. And when you come back, you can either spend some time in here listening to the panel about pathways. Oh, it is pathways. Got it the other way around. That my bad. So in here is pathways. That's talking about participation as pathways to further employment. Or next door will be tools of the trade. So opportunities and projects in action, talking about how they've gone about what they've done, talking about good practice. So yeah, grab some fresh air, put your face in the sunshine. I'll go. Shall I go away?
That's right. So sorry. I know that everyone was ready to dash to dine. We've got an announcement for Thursday night. So dinner at Thursday night at FOS Kitchen Bar from 6:30 p.m. The cost $25, but if you're interested in coming along, we've got some platters of Greek food to share. Please get in touch with Karen or down there I'm pretty sure at the register table. And yeah, we'd love to see you there. It's wheelchair accessible and does serve alcohol if you're, in the mood, I guess, responsibly. Yeah, and otherwise, yeah, feel free to ask questions. And yes, now you can go off and enjoy the food. Thank you. 10 minutes, yes.
So sorry, Mia. You're in charge. The interpreters will just wander around. So welcome everybody. My name's Karen. I work for YACVic Rural down in the Great South Coast. My pronouns are she, her, and I feel such an extraordinary relief to be here on wonderful Judjawurrung land and pay my respects to the elders past and present. And I'm so thrilled that you could all be here with us this week. Most of you, as working with young people, you've done a bit of event management, haven't you? So you can have a bit of sympathy. I could say empathy, but actually I mean sympathy for me, having wrangled this beast of a program into place with the wonderful assistance of Akshay, who's moving posters at the moment. Oh, yeah, they're closing the doors. Okay. All right. So we're thrilled you're here, and I'm filling in, actually. We did have a magnificent young person, Sienna Gladstone from Warrnambool, who was scheduled to be your moderator for, actually, she was scheduled to be MC and moderator for this session. And, they got COVID. Yeah, we've had a few run-ins with COVID. So apologies, you've got the relatively underprepared me and the me who's got a head full of event management. So I'm going to rely on, I think as every good moderator should, I'm going to rely on the joy and passion and enthusiasm of this extraordinary panel over here to my left. And we're going to talk about what the hell happens next after youth participation. Yeah, we have these amazing young people who join us for something, might be a consult, might be being part of an event like this week, might be, I don't know, do some work for us, but like things end. And how do we make sure that both the young people are taking a good bag full of skills and experiences and networks and opportunity with them, but also where are they going next? Like, what's going to happen for young people after they leave our little, what shall we call it? Oh, incubator. That's the word. I feel like we're an incubator sometimes. And you see that with such pride and satisfaction in the youth sector, that we do enable opportunities to happen for young people, and then, see them grow and be so excited and proud for them. So to actually make sense of this topic for you, as I said, we've got this gorgeous panel over here to my left. Just let me get the names 100%. So from which direction will I take it? From this end, we have Alannah Sander, who's joining us on behalf of Youth Live for Life. We also have Laura Crozier next to her. Okay, so Laura and Alannah are both Youth Live for Life. Crew for Life, more specifically, and I'll intro them in detail in a minute. Then we have Steph and Ella from the Rural Youth Network. Yeah, so they're from the organisation YouThrive, all the bits and bobs, all the fantastic information about YouThrive and the Rural Youth Network is up in the corner there. We've jumped order. Hello, Chloe. Chloe's got here with 5 minutes to spare after a traffic car incident this morning. Chloe's joining us from the UN Youth. And on the end, we have June Bin Lee from the Youth Disability Advocacy Service. So quite a range of speakers. But firstly, I am going to invite Alannah and Laura to come over here and talk about their Crew for Life. So Alannah, uses pronouns she, her, and she's the youth engagement worker at Youth Live for Life and passionately supports the growth and active involvement of the Crew for Life alumni network. Coming from a small southwest Victorian town, she witnessed the dire need for mental health support and the prevailing stigma in rural regions. This fuelled her academic pursuit, leading her to attain a Bachelor of Health Sciences with major in health promotion from La Trobe. And beyond her professional work, Alannah's personal endeavours include sports like cricket and sprinting. She's also an Irish dancer and musician, writing and producing her own songs. And she's going straight from here to the airport tomorrow to have amazing adventures elsewhere. So Laura, who'll be joining her, Laura Crozier, wears a whole bunch of hats. Drawing today from her own lived experience, Laura's a passionate advocate for empowering and educating other young people when it comes to the struggles of navigating mental health and consent education, especially rural regional settings. With over 6 years of volunteering and working with suicide prevention charity Youth Live for Life, Laura is now a proud member of their alumni group, Crew for Life. She works also for YACVic as the Affirmative Consent Project Officer in the Southern Mallee, an opportunity that sees her live out her dream of delivering consent education to the young people who need it most. Outside of her job, Laura continues her advocacy work through her platform as co-host of a podcast, Growing Up Clueless. You need to listen to Growing Up Clueless, which focuses on inspiring young people to embrace their voices, challenge societal taboos, and foster a safe space for open dialogue in a way that mainstream education didn't do for her. So welcome Alannah and Laura up to the podium, please, if you'd like to start us off.
Thank you, Karen, for that amazing introduction. Hello, everyone. First of all, I would like to acknowledge country today. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land we meet and the judge our war on country, and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. My name is Alannah. I'm the youth engagement worker here at Youth Live for Life, and I use she, her pronouns. A visual description of myself would be red hair, glasses, about 5'8", wearing a bright green top today. And I'd also like to pass it on to Laura, our Crew for Life member.
Hi everyone, my name is Laura. I use she, her pronouns. So as Alannah said, I'm a Crew for Life member at Youth Live for Life. A visual image description of me is pale skin, dark brown hair that I often am fighting is dark brown, not black. For some reason, that's like a big identity thing for me. I don't know why. And I'm wearing a long black dress today.
Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. I feel very grateful to be here today sharing Live for Life our journey with you for our young people. First of all, I think it's important to give you a bit of background into Youth Live for Life and what we do. So, yeah, Youth Live for Life is a health promotion charity. We use the Live for Life model to support rural and regional communities and their young people in the mental health sector, decreasing stigma around mental health in rural areas and increasing help-seeking behaviour for young people. The Live for Life model is the only model designed for young people in regional and rural areas for their mental health, and it is a community-grown and evidence-based model for improving youth mental health and reducing suicide across regional and rural communities. So we're the only mental health charity education and youth suicide prevention model designed for these communities. And we were established in the Macedon Ranges in 2010. And then we are now in 11 communities all around Victoria and one in Tasmania as well. There has been 18,645 young people trained in youth mental health first aid through the Live for Life program. And there has also been 1,902 adults trained in teen mental health first aid. There are also 4 components of the model. If we could change the slide, that would be amazing.
I'm going to give you the power.
Ooh. Thank you.
Push an arrow.
Awesome. So as you can see, this is the Youth Live for Life model that is unique to rural and regional areas. The first part of the model is the partnership groups, which is all the schools, local government and community and health services and governance role in the implementation of the model.
Oh, sorry. I was just so intrigued by what you were saying. I was like, oh, too focused on that. The second aspect of this model is the teen and youth mental health first aid in schools and community.
And then the crew, which is the youth participation and leadership program.
And then finally, we have the support and mentoring from Youth Live for Life. So I guess now that you've heard a bit about Live for Life and what Live for Life does, I'll jump into speaking a little bit about the crew and what that actually is. So student representatives from years 9 and 10 from the participating schools in Live for Life communities are able to express interest in joining a Live for Life crew. So the role of crew is to assist in the delivery of events and promote positive mental health and wellbeing messages at their school and in their communities. They come up with a mental health theme that they decide on, and then they plan events around that. And I think that's one of the major things that the crew get to do that really brings the team together. It's a really lovely process to be involved in. I'm saying that as a crew member, as a past crew member, and as someone who has also worked with crews as well. So it's a really special thing to be a part of. The crew is supported by a local council or another relevant organisation with youth participation expertise. Crew members are engaged, active, and invested in the mental health education and literacy of their peers and the wider community as well. They become mental health advocates and Live for Life ambassadors. The crew provides young people with the opportunity to be leaders in their local area and to advocate for mental health support and education in an ongoing and empowering way. So far, across all the communities, there have been over 1,100 crew members, which is a really incredible number to see.
Thank you, Laura. Can everyone hear me? Amazing.
Slay, we love that.
We love it. I have my own microphone now. Watch out. Okay. Thank you so much, Laura. Laura's an amazing crew member who has firsthand experienced what it's been like being in crew and also Crew for Life, which is my main position, my main role at Youth Live for Life was to start the Crew for Life, which is an alumni program of all the past crew members all around the state who have been through the Live for Life program. It was founded this year, so we're in the beginning year of getting the Crew for Life formed, building the structure for the future of our young people to continue their journey at Live for Life. So the purpose of Crew for Life to be formed was to embolden the work that Youth Live for Life does and engage Crew for Life in our many events, programs and opportunities. and also to further the skills of young people as mental health ambassadors. We also develop skills and training and through mentorship as well. And this will in turn provide important resources and opportunities for rural and regional communities through a network of young mental health ambassadors. Yeah, so Crew for Life, it's honestly an amazing opportunity for our young people so far. Crew for Life achieves our purpose through amplifying youth voice within the organisation and the Live for Life model, increases confidence and skills of Crew for Life members, provides professional experience for Crew for Life members, and builds social connections. So this whole section of the Potholes to Possibility part of our conference today is really about those experiences beyond being in programs such as Crew. And that's where Crew for Life has stepped in as an idea from our Crew members who wanted to continue their journey in becoming mental health ambassadors and receive further opportunities in their life, in their day-to-day life that they can transfer throughout their whole lifetime. So far, being a Crew for Life member has come with lots of opportunities. So as our Crew for Life members come from all around the state, we meet monthly in a Zoom, which has been really successful and a great environment for people to meet other people who are passionate about mental health and making a difference. They've also helped plan events and activities and be engaged in further training opportunities. And we have engaged in opportunities from YACVic as well. And they've been really supportive additionally in creating our remuneration statement as well to remunerate young people for their expertise. There's a bunch of other opportunities as well that have been available for our Crew for Life members. And also in the future, we are developing a Crew Champion position, which is a paid position to recognise the skills and levels of expertise of young people so they can speak up at events within our communities and remain re-engaged in the communities as well. So that is a pathway for employment as well. So it started as a quite informal group, but we've become a formal group this year. We have 20 members from all around the state who are so committed and passionate to make a difference and looking to grow even more next year and into the future. We're also developing a youth advisory committee as well, so that youth voice can be at the centre of our organisation, which is one of the most important things that we're working on at the moment. Thank you. I'd like to now pass on to Laura to talk a little bit about her story as well. Oh, sorry.
I'll be quick, I promise. As much as I love to talk about myself, I'll make it really quick. But I did just want to come along today to also talk about my personal experience with Live for Life. I think it's really important to hear from a young person firsthand how valuable this program is. It's an opportunity for young people to have a say in what really matters to them. And a program like this that is specifically designed for rural and regional communities truly is so, so special. I've suffered with mental health for many years now, and Live for Life was one of my greatest supporters. It's honestly the program that saved my life. I've said it before and I'll say it again. So having an opportunity to come together and connect with other young people that have also experienced this and, understand the need for a project like this, but also the community that it brings. It's so, so valuable, and it's just a really special opportunity for us to be able to continue that work in a meaningful way, rather than just having young people involved for a short amount of time and then never being able to be involved again, which is not what happened with me because I'm like a fly and I stick around. So anyway, thank you so much for having us here today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yay, thank you so much. Aren't they brilliant? And what a great program. Next, I'm going to ask to step up Stephanie and Ella from the Rural Youth Network. So Steph Hartshorn is pronoun she, her, is interested in all things health and wellbeing. She's originally from Swan Hill in Northwest Vic and is currently studying a Bachelor of Social Science in Melbourne. Steph's very passionate about working with young people and through a role as engagement leader for the Rural Youth Network, hopes to discover and create opportunities for young rural Victorians to thrive. Alongside Steph is Ella Jacobsen. And again, pronoun she, her. Yes, thank you, Ella. Grew up in Yay and is currently living in Ballarat, studying teaching and working in a school and as an engagement leader with the Rural Youth Network. Ella's contributed to the YouThrive community for a number of years as a volunteer and alumni member. Ella's passionate about rural education and through her work hopes to encourage young people to reach their goals and their full potential. Over to you. Thank you. And there's one, and there's the other, and yeah, you have the power. Just get collected.
Hi everyone. Let's get to the next slide. My name's Ella. I grew up in Yay. I am working as a rural youth engagement leader. Karen covered that. I'm tall-ish, or I call myself tall. Have curly brown hair. Wearing my branded Rural Youth Network t-shirt and some green pants. So,
Hi everyone, my name's Steph. I'm from Swan Hill and I'm the Rural Youth Network Engagement Leader for Northwest Victoria. I look very similar to Alannah. I have red hair, I'm quite tall. I'm wearing my white RYN top as well. So yeah, that's me.
So we're here to talk to you today about the Rural Youth Network. We refer to it as the RYN and encourage you to as well, and how it can benefit you. I just thought Anne made a really great point in the panel earlier, talking about the inequalities between rural and metro opportunities, and we really feel that the RYN can be part of this solution. I say part because we do all need to work together. We really do encourage and welcome organisations to partner with us to create better opportunities for rural young people. So we are an initiative of YouThrive Victoria. The idea came about on one of our leadership programs. The young people on our camps as part of our alumni felt there was a real need for connections for people living in rural areas. They really stressed that they wanted this to be built by young people for young people, and we've carried that through, employing young people throughout the whole process. And the program is targeted for people aged 16 to 30, provides networks, information and support to help build resilient communities, and it really helps to showcase what's happening in rural and regional Victoria. Currently, we have over 2,000 young people using the website and have been to over 50 in-person events. It's a new way of thinking about community. We have place-based things, which Steph will talk about in a second, and then we have our online components, and they really work together, sharing the in-person stuff online. And yeah. So on the right of the screen, you can see the 5 sort of areas of the website. First of all, we have communities. So this is where you'll find groups that are happening in your community. That could be things as casual as your local book club, maybe a run club, and even things like youth councils, freezer committees. And this is a place where organisations can upload their own groups and communities as well, and we really encourage you to. It means more people find it. So that's where you find all of the groups. You can filter it by your LGA, so say you move to a new place, you can literally find out what's happening in your area. We then have events. So we promote our own events on here, such as we've got a financial literacy workshop coming up in Melbourne. We have our country catch-ups events. And we also upload other organisations' events in different areas. And you can also filter the events on here by your local government area. And we really do encourage other organisations to keep uploading your events, even if it's your local market that you go to every Sunday. Like we put up your mental health first aid courses and things like that. We then have the mentoring part of the website. So this is where you can ask questions of our team and then we can get back to you with an answer. This could be things about university. You could have a question about a different industry, moving out of home, or really anything. An improved version of the website is coming out in December, where there will be even more mentoring opportunities available. Then we have the opportunities tab, which is personally one of my favourites, I think, although they're all great. This is really useful. We share lots of upskilling opportunities on here, such as RSA courses, mental health first aid, barista courses, things happening in your local area so young people can find out about them. There's also a section within this that's really valuable about scholarships. So we put our own YouThrive University scholarships. We also have rural chances that we put on there. And then we find all of the scholarships that are applicable to young rural people and put them on the website. So you don't have to keep looking at millions of different websites trying to find scholarships for you. They're all in one place on the Rural Youth Network. We also have the map, which shows how many people in your LGA are signed up to the website. And this can also be used to filter all of the opportunities, events, and communities that are in your area. Yeah, I'll pass it on to Steph to talk about in-person things.
Thanks, Ella. That was great. So now I'm going to let you guys know about all the amazing in-person events that we do and programs that we run. Firstly, we have a program called Branch Out Mentoring. So this is a free peer-to-peer transition program, as you can see up on the screen. We run with Year 12 students. So we get a local young person to come in and facilitate group mentoring on topics that are completely up to the students themselves. So it's all designed by the students and what they want to know more about. Some popular sessions that we've run in the past include how to apply for scholarships, understanding tax, HECS debt and superannuation, moving out of home, and lots of other ones. The aim of this program is firstly to support young people in their journey from high school and then on to whether that's further education, uni, TAFE or the workforce. And secondly, it's to broaden their horizons about what they think is possible and what they think they can achieve. We do this by having guest speakers who have grown up in the area come along and chat to students about all the amazing things they're doing. I love this program and I think it fits in really well with this session, as I see this program as essential for letting young people know about the different possibilities and pathways that they have. And what they could pursue. I know that coming from a small town myself, and I'm sure Ali can relate, it can sometimes feel like your opportunities are quite limited. But, you know, we're here to say that that may be the case, but, you know, there's organisations out there like us who are there to help you to achieve your goals. We also run community events. So most recently we put on a colour run in Swan Hill called Colour Me Rural, which was lots of fun. So we had over 130 community members come along and participate in a fun run that, you know, was really promoting a sense of social connection in Swan Hill. And along with doing our own events, we also love to partner with other people and other organisations to put on events all over the state. So, for example, we've got a Maryborough Youth Ball coming up. We're partnering with their local youth council, which is super exciting. And finally, we also have a social group in Melbourne called Country Catch-Ups. So we run this, it's a monthly free or low cost social group that does events every single month. And it's for young rural people who have moved to the city, whether that's for study or for employment, to just come together and meet other like-minded people. We know that it can be really intimidating moving to a big city when you're from a small little rural town. And we really want to, you know, promote this sense of social connection all over the state, no matter where you are. In 2024, we would love to partner with other organisations to put on events of any kind, whether that's colour runs, you know, movie nights, youth balls, whatever it is that your young people want. We would love to partner with you. If anyone wants to know more info about how to sign up, especially anyone who does want to collaborate, feel free to come have a chat to us later on. We'll be over at our stall over there. Yeah, if you want, you can check out our social media or use this QR code to sign up right now. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Yay, who knew that, hey? What a fantastic way to extend the knowledge of opportunities for young people around the state. Next, I'd like to welcome up Jun Bin Lee. who's the Communications Project Officer for YDAS, the Youth Disability Advocacy Service. June has experience in various areas, including as an environmental engineer, project manager, creative arts practitioner, and content producer. He is passionate about social development and is actively involved in local community-based projects in the arts and cultural space. Do you use the pronouns he, him? June uses pronouns he, him, and is a big fan of using creative storytelling to raise awareness about social issues, including the prevention of family violence, gambling addiction, and speaking up against racism. In his current role at YDAS, June has recently worked on projects such as the Disability Pride Starts Here project, which is the one that we're going to hear a bit about today. All right, so thank you, June.
Thank you, Karen. Where's the camera where the Zoom participant? Oh, hello. Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is June. My pronouns are he, him. I'd like to start by also acknowledging the traditional custodian of this land. Just learned it just now. Jaja Wurong land. I just want to pay my respect to the elders past, present, and emerging. A visual description of me. I am not very tall. I'm of Asian descent, and I wear glasses. I'm wearing a blue jacket, and and a short pants because it's hot. Cool. I'd like to also introduce you all to YDAS, Youth Disability Advocacy Service. It's a wonderful organization that I'm part of, and most of my colleagues are right there. YDAS is an advocacy organization, mainly working alongside with disabled young people aged between 12 to 25. And by disabled young people, it's mainly working with young people who identify as having a disability, health condition or chronic illness, neurodivergent, deaf or hard of hearing, blind or low vision, as well as lived experience of mental health. So that's YDAS. It's Victorian-based. And today I also like to introduce one of the many, many projects that YDAS runs. This one is called Disability Pride Starts Here. It's, I believe, conceived by my colleagues, including Stacy, Mia, and Laura. And next page. The main objective of this project, it's to support disabled young people and the wider community to view disability through a disability pride lens. It aims to encourage all Victorians to see disability not just as a negative, rather from a strength-based or neutral approach, therefore helping to remove barriers disabled people face because of negative community attitudes. So essentially, there are two main targeted audience through this project. The first one is disabled young people, the other disabled young people, and the second one is wider organizations and people without disability. And in this case, we're mainly focusing a lot more on potential employers, future employers of disabled young people. And so the project ran from February to July, so about 5 months. And I guess the reason it's that long is because one of the, thing that YDAS embrace a lot is the co-design element. So we spent a chunk of time engaging with 5 disabled young people from all across Victoria to participate in online co-design workshops, mostly via Zoom, as well as involving them in the content creation. So basically they're involved in not just co-design of the potential resources, but also co-creation of the resources, which was really fun and a huge learning curve for me, especially comes to the accessibility side of the component of the project. So let me introduce you to our project advisory group members. So how should I go? So the first one, I'll go from Max clockwise. So that's Max. I can't remember Max's cat, but that was a pet night. So we all brought our pets. And that was me. in the middle, and then next is Maya and Anna underneath Maya, and next to Anna in the middle is Mac. Mac Zamani. She's a very important person that I want to acknowledge today, because Mac is a peer facilitator for this project, and he basically taught me a lot of things when it comes to facilitating, co-facilitating online, and making sure we cover the access needs of the disabled young people. And over here, that's Julie, and underneath Julie, that's Jessie. So the 5 of them joined Meg and I every Thursday for, I think, 4 weeks to co-design a list of content that they believe is missing or needing more explanation for the wider audience. So, yep, I think I've covered this. Why there's this approach is, making sure it's co-designed and co-created by disabled young people. Accessibility is key, as well as creating an inclusive and safe space, while allowing young people to participate in ways that is comfortable for them. For example, they can type their ideas in chat if they do not want to speak out loud. They can take breaks anytime they want. And we do make sure we have breaks every half an hour, 5 minutes break, and every 1 hour they get 10 minutes break. And yeah, essentially that's the beauty of why this is approach, and we encourage as many organizations to hopefully take up this approach as you conduct youth participation work. So just quickly run through. So at the end of the project, we developed 22 creative content. Part of the component of the project is also to invite other disabled young people who are not part of the project advisory group to share content. And surprisingly, many of them are super enthusiastic. A wide variety of content and different art forms. I should have, learning from the last speakers, included 2 QR codes right there so that you can see them. But if you are interested, yeah, I will share the website later. And the project advisory groups also co-created 6 videos covering the range these topics here. So I don't have to read them out. I think one of the co-design session that we had, we spent a lot of time just discussing some commonly asked questions by non-disabled people, and in the end, we turned that into, do you know that program? You can't ask that. So that image over there, yeah, it's a list of questions that they identified, and then we asked them those questions while they respond to that. It's quite very cool. So yeah, just making sure I'm aligned with the overall theme of this session. I just want to say, many of the participants involved in this project, you know, they're actually part of other YDES's programs, such as Young Leaders programs, in which 8 graduates contributed to the resources. One of them was part of the project advisory group. And we had another project called COVID Vaccination Project. And yeah, many of the young people from there then saw this opportunity and then took part in it, as well as Map Your Future project. So it's I guess in essence, it's one of the many projects that YDES is creating as a platform and opportunity for our previous participants to keep joining, keep participating. I do want to highlight one of the key challenge for me is to navigate through the diverse and sometimes competing access needs during the co-design workshops, such as having to share screen on Zoom. But yeah, how do you make sure that works with people with visual impairment? So that's an ongoing learning process. I think I've passed my time, but I'll summarize. I just want to end this project by, I guess, amplifying the voices of the participants, because it's essentially this is a project for them, by them. So yeah, some of our participants say it's really encouraging to see, help make me feel prideful in my disabilities, as some of them may have been their first time being exposed to this idea of disability pride. And through this project, they get to learn a bit more and see other peers advocating for disability pride. And the sense of community is one thing that that keep coming out as we conduct our evaluation session with the project advisory groups. And I really like the last one, in which I guess essentially it's trying to highlight that YDES managed to show this particular disabled young person what an inclusive and accessible online meeting could look like, and that he then from that point onwards will then help to advocate for an environment like that moving forward. So that's all from me.
Thank you, June. And our final panel member for this session is Chloe Rheinberger, who uses pronouns she, her. Chloe's the UN Youth Victoria's Program Director. And in this role, she's overseen a range of events around the state for young people, including the state and national conferences, summit series, global affairs program, and regional road trip. Chloe's travelled throughout Australia to deliver programs to a range of not-for-profit organisations. Big, long sentences, Chloe, centred around an array of global issues, including climate change, human rights, and youth mental health. Thank you, Chloe.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're well. I'd firstly like to start by acknowledging that today I am presenting on the lands of the Dja Dja Wurrung people and would like to pay my respects to all elders, past, present, and extend these invitations and respects to any Aboriginal people who are in the room today. My name is Chloe. I use she, her pronouns, and today I have blonde hair, blue eyes, no, green eyes. I'm so sorry. I have green eyes. I have fair skin. I'm wearing a white t-shirt that has the UN Youth logo emblazoned on it. I have black pants on and cream-coloured shoes, and I am honoured to speak to you all today. Before I start my presentation today, I think it is best to demonstrate the transferable skills that are so important to young people through my experience at UN Youth Victoria. I'll do this by providing a little bit of insight into what UN Youth is in general, and then kind of transfer that into the two different audiences that we cater to at UN Youth. So I'm sure you've all heard maybe a little bit about UN Youth. I feel like it's quite a common thing that people sort of do some events. But for those who haven't heard of it before, UN Youth is a non-for-profit organisation run by young people aged 18 to 25 years old, all run by volunteers. So it is a national organisation with divisions in every state and territory in Australia with, I think last time I checked, it was over 2,000 members, but that might be a little bit outdated. But it's a big organisation and every state has their own division. So this means that we have events that are catered to a really local scale, such as school visits, day summit events. We call them crisis points and debates. We also have residential events that are 2 to 4 night-long events for local students in each divisional state. And then we also have national events. These national events go for 1 to 2 weeks and they're hosted in different cities around the country. And then we have international events. So those are called ALT. They go to New Zealand, Europe, the Middle East, Asia, and the Americas. So lots of different things to talk about. But I think that the main thing about this presentation, what we're here to talk about today, is those transferable skills that are so important for the alumni at UN Youth. So to do that, I think at UN Youth we have 2 different audiences. We have the students that we cater for. So those are the high school students. That's one group of people, and they're usually in years 8 to 12 at high school. The second group of alumni are the facilitators at our program. So we have our facilitators, such as myself, who are aged 18 to 25. And then the students, we call them delegates, which sounds a bit funny, but because it's all about the UN, they're all called delegates. So that's what I'm referencing to throughout the presentation. So with the students, the delegates that we're talking about, these skills that are so important to build up that we at UN Youth find really important to continue to transfer across generations are those skills of diplomacy, inclusivity, and being really empowering towards young people. So this can look like a range of different things. I know that every delegate finds a different experience at the organisation. I myself found it really empowering to be in an environment where everyone was so open, inclusive towards your views and being really supported in whatever it was you might think in such an open and just lovely environment, which now being a facilitator is such a tricky one to enable, but it's so worthwhile. And as I'm sure you will all have agreed and realised throughout your various roles at such wonderful organisations, creating such an empowering space can be so beneficial, and that is always number one of our priorities. So as a delegate, I took part in this competition called the Voice Competition, the state conference, and a various other amount of competitions that somehow just found their way in my inbox. But this was all in COVID because I graduated last year. So these were all in COVID. I did them all online. And which is a very different experience transferring from online to in person, which I'll talk a little bit about later. And I feel like we'll all kind of talk about that a bit later, about the impact of just COVID on general operations. So for these things, I personally learnt how to continue to maintain really healthy relations with just people I'd never met before, and have found that so beneficial going into uni and going into just wider life. So this is kind of the skills that we transfer towards our students. And the next one is the facilitators. So everyone in here would count as a facilitator because whilst you've been trained, because you're over like, I don't know, 17 to 25. And facilitators are the people who run the events. They're volunteers, they run the whole organisation. So those 2,000 people I talked about before, they're all volunteers and they're all young people between 18 and 25 who spend countless hours. And I'm so grateful for every single one of them because none of this would happen without their support and dedication to the organisation. So for them, we make sure that they are gaining something out of it. And I think that's what we can all think about today. For the facilitators, there are so many different roles that you can hold in the organisation, specifically in UN Youth Victoria. So that might look like facilitating workshops or being a welfare officer at events, both of which you gain really specific training for, of which is transferable, it is free, and it is delivered in a way that is widely very accessible and always catered towards whatever the participant might need in order to gain the accreditation to be in that position to look after what are essentially like children and young people. So that's one thing you can do. We also have a panel of directors. So myself am a programs director at UN Youth, which means I have run 4 to 5 programs this year, of which have conveners as well. So we have a programs director, a treasurer, communications director, strategy and partnerships director, regional director, secretary, treasurer. Oh, I said treasurer, but there are lots of different things. That's the point. So no matter what kind of thing you're interested in at UN Youth, there is somehow something you can do that will build your skills and build your skill set. And I think that as someone who has finished high school and didn't and still has no idea what they want to do, it has been so lovely to be in a place where you can experience such a range of things without any qualifications, without any payment, and being very supported in like what you're doing in general. So with this comes the opportunity of making sure that our volunteers are very well supported and are gaining something out of the experience. So this could look like traveling interstate, all of which is very much funded by the organisation itself. Traveling interstate, being part of like governmental meetings. I know I was in a DFAT meeting earlier this year in January after Christmas. And I was like, what is this? This is so cool. But these are the kind of opportunities that we want to provide for the volunteers, and we'll continue to do so in the future. So I think the next sort of step is what we're looking to do in the future and to continue to build these transferable skills that I think are so important. So we had kind of 2 things that we would like to work on most broadly. One is building up facilitator retention and building up the number of students who come to our events, which has been very difficult post-COVID, specifically as an organisation that thrived on in-person events and having large, like hundreds of students coming to competitions is something that we really like to work on in the future. And I think we'd love to partner with different organisations to kind of find a way to navigate this really uncharted world that we're now living in today, and make sure that we continue to deliver these such excellent programs for so many young people. The second thing is to build on the experience that our volunteers have at the organisation. So this might be continuing to have interstate travel, international travel, building upon those relationships within government. But UN Youth is a fairly old organisation. It's been around for not old, but it's not new. I was looking through the archives the other day and there was like some letter from Tasmania in like I don't even know. It was old. It was in like written paper. It was handwritten. They didn't have, oh my goodness, I know. Anyway, but my point is back every so often we have transferred across. It's so fine. I don't know where that was going anyway. But the point is that throughout the organisation, because it is quite widely known within Australia, it's quite transferable across divisions. There have been different sort of focuses every maybe 5 to 10 years, of which we sort of changed the direction of the organisation, of which past in in the past used to focus on like policy and youth advocacy, or we focused on international advocacy. And I think really distilling it down to the volunteer experience and making sure that we're empowering young people to do what it is that they need, building up, whether it be building up their resume, providing these opportunities that, in my opinion, if you weren't volunteering, you wouldn't have these opportunities at all. Like to finish high school at 18 and then the January after be running an event pretty much by yourself to host to, what is it, like 100 students for 3 days, to find funding, to like $13,000 of funding at like such an inexperienced level has been such an amazing opportunity, and one that I would wish that so many other people could have the opportunity to do. So building that reputation, building that impact, and supporting our volunteers. So I'm sure we'll talk about it in the future a little bit more, but I would love for anyone who has any questions to come up and ask. And I look forward to meeting you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Chloe. How extraordinary. We have this panel of young people, and I am including you, June, who are themselves alumni of different participation programs. So my question to whoever wants to jump in first is about the importance of having experiences in your early years, what should we call it, in your youth, in then going on to develop opportunities for other people. So how much of your passion for creating opportunities for other people has come from your own experience? Is that where you think this has come from? And how do we extend that? How do we make that bigger for other people too? Grab a mic.
Okay, hello. I think that personally, like my engagement in Live for Life played a massive role where I am today. I think that like without the skill building, the networking, like literally anything you could name, like it was an opportunity that I got with Live for Life. And then that followed on like for, future engagements with different programs. And I think that that's led me to where I am today. I built so much of who I am based on my experiences as a young person in being able to have access to like advocating for what I'm passionate about. And I think that without that, I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have like the confidence to get up in front of a room and talk about, the impact it had. I wouldn't have the confidence to apply for jobs that maybe I'm not qualified for, but I definitely have the like personal experience for. And I think that that's something that I'm navigating as like a young person in a real, like in an adult job, is that like my experience of being a person, what I've experienced in my life, that's actually invaluable. And that's something that like I was kind of encouraged to believe through Live for Life as well. So
Ellen, what are you jumping in?
For me, in terms of participation, I went on YouThrive's 7-day leadership program at the start of 2020, and that has literally changed my life because I got involved then, and then I kept volunteering through other alumni programs. Example is I started volunteering for Dream Seeds, which is workshops with grade 5 to 6 students in country schools, 90 minutes about resilience, connection and aspiration. But I did that. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was kind of in this uni degree just because I felt like I had to be at uni because everybody else was. And I absolutely loved it and thought, oh my gosh, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. I want to teach. I want to help young people. And now I'm studying teaching. And I think through our job as rural youth engagement leaders, I really want to push to other people, just take every opportunity you can. Like, even if it means you don't like something, then you don't like it. But if it ends up being something you love, you can do that for the rest of your life. So.
Chloe?
I think absolutely. I think it's a very different experience as a student going through the program as it is a facilitator going in the program. Very much so, as a student, you have no idea as to all the effort that people go to make sure your experience wonderful and lovely and make sure that you are supported. And I had no idea. I was so oblivious. But then like running events, you're like, oh my gosh, like this is so much. But it's very different and it's very rewarding nonetheless. So I think as a student, definitely coming from inner city Melbourne, learning about all the different people that live in Victoria and in Australia and all the different experiences that everyone has was so empowering. And then that definitely sparked my involvement as a facilitator. And even that, it can be tough sometimes because you're obviously spending so much time and effort and energy providing these experiences. But the reward, and this sounds so cheesy, but the reward is way outweighs it because you can put in weeks of effort and then see one student turn to you and go, this is like my favorite thing I've ever done. I've never felt so supported. And it happens more often than I thought, which has just continued to make it so beneficial. But I think, yeah, that's definitely inspired it, but in a little bit of a different way. It's obviously a very different experience.
Fantastic. Do you want to answer that, June, or would you like to bring the conversation then into how we extend the understanding and knowledge of those opportunities to a broader rural audience?
Wow, that's a hard one.
No, you can do it. Go on.
I just want to, maybe for the last question, in terms of youth participation, I didn't go through that. I was, I guess, following a very typical get your degree, get a job sort of pathway. And when I think of youth work, I usually think of it's, probably not secure and pretty much the things that was covered just now at the main panel. And so like moving forward, if there's more awareness that this is a really, really fulfilling job, even within university, and also the possibility to a sustainable stability, life, I would have done that way earlier. In terms of the second question about reaching out, I guess reaching out to the wider rural Victorian government areas, I don't know, but I do think one of the key components is to do it through a hybrid or online environment. That's probably the most effective way to reach out, to share knowledge, to exchange ideas all across Victoria. And online space or hybrid space is probably a space that I guess where I'm working in, we get to experience a bit more on how to create a safe, inclusive, and accessible space to allow this effective communications and exchange of ideas. That's where.
Yeah, nice call. Because I had flagged that we'd talk about COVID, but honestly, and I think Steph's going to jump in with a response there, aren't you?
Sorry, just on the whole opportunities thing, I'm very passionate about this area. Firstly, I just want to say what a great panel we have, and listening to everyone talk, I'm just like, oh my God, that's so cool. I didn't know that existed. Yeah. And I think the reason that, one of the reasons we've made the Rural Youth Network is for this purpose exactly, to let people know about all these opportunities. And you think about it, it's we've taken every opportunity we can, I guess you would say, and actively gotten involved. But you're like, oh, why don't other people know about all this amazing stuff that's going on? So, the RYN, we really encourage all of you guys to promote this stuff and, partner with all partner together to do all this great stuff and let everyone know about what's going on. But I really think the RYN is key to doing all this.
I wanted to contribute to that as well. I think in the community that I grew up in, sadly, there was no support for young people, especially in the mental health sector. And now leaving my community, Live for Life came into my community the year after I left, and coming back and seeing the change that it has made on young people is just amazing and makes me feel so passionate. So again, just continue doing the work that you are doing and lean on to us as well. As young people, we are so passionate about making a difference. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. We are supposed to wrap up now and have a question discussion time at our tables when this other mob join us. Akshay, yeah, go on. Give them a little hurry up. Yeah. But if you'd like to join me in thanking our wonderful panel, we've probably got time for one question while we wait for the rest of them, haven't we? Has anybody got a burning desire to quiz the panel on something? Yeah. Go, Steve.
I guess as a male, I've worked in, I'm going to say, female-dominated workplaces for all my career, and I've recently sort of stepped into this space, and surprise, surprise, very much the same. And I was just curious. I'm just looking at the presence of you all up here today, and I was just curious to sort of get your perspectives on how we can get greater diversity of genders in this particular sort of space. Just curious to see if any of you have any thoughts.
I think it's really interesting because obviously I think that all organisations, at least those here today, really aim to have a really diverse range of people participating, and it's so important to make sure that the people you're catering for have adequate representation in the team that you're representing. I think that from a perspective of an organisation that is quite large, it largely comes down to making sure that the trainings that you're running and the outreach is really strong. So maybe advertising in different areas. I know that we have made an effort to go just to random places that you would never have anticipated to go to. Like ease isn't always the best way to go, even though it might just be right there. That's often where the best opportunities seem to arise. But also when you have that, acknowledging that as someone who may not be used to and comfortable in the environment that they are being now exposed to, that's going to be really challenging. And that may be faced with attitudes that may not be so positive. If someone is feeling really uncomfortable, that can sometimes translate, especially for young people in uncomfortable situations, into sort of what might be termed as like negative behaviours, and just really being aware of that, and that it's often a coping mechanism that can be very much supported and turned into something really quite positive.
I just wanted to add that I think the best way to find any group of people to come and participate, whether that is a more diverse group, is to find out where they are, go and ask them, but not just ask them, have conversations with them. I don't think we have too much of a problem with gender diversity. We have a pretty balanced mix coming to our events, but our events are really relevant. We're making sure we're having conversations with young people. We are young people having the conversations with young people as well, which I think helps. And we're literally asking, what do you want? What do you think can help you? Yeah, making it relevant. And that's why they come along, because it's something they want to come along to.
Fabulous. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Thank you for the question. Oh, Steph, you're looking at me with such expectation there. Nah? Are you done? Yeah. We really need to get this discussion process going. Yeah, thank you. All right. Stand up and have a little shake and get ready to chat with each other. That's our next session. We're actually going to enable a few conversations at your tables about the issues that have come up today. An announcement for the live stream. You're over for today. We'll see you again tomorrow.